Welcome to Global Brains, the podcast, where we interview AI experts, thought leaders, business executives, as well as young talent all over the world to demystify AI and discuss the latest trends in business and beyond. Our goal is to make AI understandable and accessible to everyone. So let's get started with your host, Michael Burkhart.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are at the moment. Welcome to our first episode. I'm Michael, your host, but in the future, be prepared. There will be many more people as our podcast is a community-driven project. We aim to bridge the gap between technical and non-technical content to make AI understandable for all. Our goal is to bring in the human side and show how AI technology can augment our own capabilities. In our first episode, we were very lucky to speak to Professor Hiroshi Ishiguro, who is the director of the Intelligent Robotics Laboratory at Osaka University in Japan. Professor Ishiguro is well known in the robotics field and has built many androids, one of which resembles him, called the Geminoid. In this episode, we spoke about his vision, what he learned when building the Geminoid, and the role of his hairdryer when it comes to developing new ideas. But now, with no further delay, let us start. So the first question I have is, what is your vision? What is the motivation behind your work?
My motivation is to understand what the human is actually, right? And I'm quite interested in the myself or maybe the humans or societies. I really think our purpose to survive in this world as a human is to think about the humans. So always we are trying to understand ourselves. So that is the most important motivation to survive in this world. So, well, in my case, is by using computer technologies and robot technologies and other technologies, I'm approaching to that questions.
Okay, this is also the reason why you are building humanoid or android robots, right? Because they are very, very human-like. And in the process of building these robots, you already learn a lot about our own human nature.
Right. And, once we create a very human-like robot, we can directly touch to the very important human natures. Like, now we are talking each other, right? This is a conversation. What's the real meaning of a conversation? Probably, in order to have a conversation, we need to think about something. What is to think, right? So there are so many ambiguous, unknown things. We are using many unknown words, right? So I want to understand each ambiguous but a very important concept for as a humans, by using a robot. So that is, actually what we are doing in my lab.
Okay, so when you talk about thinking, you're talking about consciousness, right?
Consciousness is well, thinking and consciousness, emotions, and intention, desires. These cannot be clearly separate, right? These words are not clearly defined. And
what is your do you have your own definition of consciousness? What do you think? What is
consciousness is well, I don't have my original definitions, but in the research area, basically, we consider there are three layers for the consciousness: arousal levels, and phenomenological levels, and the access levels, right? Phenomenological level is curious, right? So when we see for example, sunset, we move, right? So that is we are moved by watching the beautiful sunset. That is phenomenological levels, and the access level is we can they consider ourself, we can feel the self, right? So that is access level. So but these three levels are tightly coupled, and we cannot decompose. And at the same time, these the conscious levels the closely related to the intention, desires, emotions, right?
Okay, so basically you use androids as a platform to learn more about our own emotions and thinking. And how do you do that? I know that you have projects or research going on how people are being influenced when they interact with one of your, let's say, androids.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? What is like the process behind it?
Always we the observing the reaction of people's. So well, probably we are doing two things. We are improving the Android performance, and then we are checking the reaction of the subjects, and then we are building a kind of hypothesis about the human natures. So.
And what is the connection between the, let's say, the body and the brain?
Yeah, that is one of the very important topics for us. So originally, I have developed the Android system as teleoperated Android. So teleoperated Android means if we talk through the internet, Android they can behave like me, and then that is a very simple teleoperations. So everybody can easily accept the Android body as their own bodies, right? So um, actually, we do not need to have tight connections between the body and brain, right? Even if that is the Android bodies, our brain can accept the Android body as our own body if the brain can control the body, right? So that is a quite interesting phenomenon.
Okay, and when I think about the Geminoid you built, what were some key insights you had along the process? Because it basically represents yourself. What was the reflection process behind it? What did you learn when you did this?
The most important lesson was actually I couldn't accept my first Geminoid as myself, but other people, the student and my staff, everybody said that this is identical to myself, right? So that means that we cannot have objective views about ourselves, right? We don't know our face and voice and behaviors, right? So, and I think, and so I found that, the humans principally cannot have objective views. And so that was the most interesting the findings for
Right,
me.
right. Because we are biased, right? So we perceive our own world, right? But people
Mm,
that
we
surround us.
we can observe the world, but we cannot, directly observe ourselves, our bodies, our face, right? We need to use the mirrors. We need to use the voice recorders, right? But once we use the voice recorders and look at the mirrors, that is, it's different from the my recognitions, So the recorded voice sounds like other persons. So,
Okay.
and principally, we cannot have the objective views, well, the understanding about ourselves.
Yeah. So this is basically the first step, right? So you build the Geminoid, and it's representing your look and your voice, the way the way you move. But the next step would be to think about your personality, let's say, right? So you want to make the Geminoid able to communicate and interact with people,
Mhm.
and I guess then it becomes even more complicated because
Right.
how do you put
Um,
your personality
mm,
onto the Geminoid?
but personality, so we are not studying the personality yet. But before the personality, we need to develop the abilities or functions to have a conversation with others, right? And the conversational autonomous robot is very difficult, right? So now we are focusing on the conversational functions, and we are taking many approaches, like a chatbot approach, or maybe more advanced the approach for the casual discussions. And now, we are focusing on the more deeper conversations based on the intention desires.
Okay. So I'm curious, what do you think? When will be the time when I sit here with you, let's say, and I'm talking to the Geminoid, and I cannot be sure that I'm talking to you or a robot version of yourself?
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, maybe the futures, right? So if we improve the robots more and more, we may have that kind of situation, right? But not yet.
Yeah. And so when we think about the robot society and when you think about merging with technology,
Mm.
what do you think about also unplugging from technology once in a while and focusing on our human nature and stepping away a little bit from technology? Do you think that is important? And do you think this will be
Um,
less important in the future?
I think it's quite important to deeply think about the human natures, but fundamentally, we human has two ways for the evolution. One is the genes, and the another is the technologies. So technologies, because of the technologies, we can be humans. That is, the technology is a difference from the animal, right? So if we don't use the technology, we're gonna be a monkey, right?
Mm.
We cannot separate technology from the humans, right? And the human is the animal, use the technology and tools, right?
Mm.
So, but we need to carefully study the both sides of animal side of humans and technology side of humans. But more important things is we can extend, we can develop the much better abilities by developing new technologies. So that is a way of human evolution.
And personally, what are the biggest, let's say, hurdles that have to be overcome to build a robot society?
The commercial for if we look at the smartphones, one country cannot develop the practical systems with the smartphone technologies. The iPhones, some other smartphones, this is a kind of a world commercial product, right? So actually, we need to have a big market to have a more powerful but cheap devices, right? Well, for the robots, the robots need to have more technologies, right? At least robot need to have actuators, right? We need to add the sensor and actuator to the smartphone, then we can have a robot. So in this case, we need to have a more bigger market, more the strong impact to the society. Otherwise, we cannot have a mass productions, and otherwise, that product is going to be very expensive. So that is the most difficult, the aspect of robot society, how we can make the robot cheap but reliable, more reliable, right?
Okay. And talking about markets and in industries and commercialization, so what is the difference between the Japanese market and the markets outside of Japan?
The Japanese market is not enough. I mean, it's so small. We need to sell the robot in the world, right? And we need to have a much bigger market. So I'm, a little bit interested in a Chinese market, and Chinese market is quickly growing, and they're crazy. They're eager to develop the robots, right? So, well, one of the possibilities is, China, they may develop the practical robots, right? So, in Japan, Japanese market is so small, but the Chinese market is much, much bigger.
Okay. Okay, so you're touching on acceptance. So you say Chinese is, for example, China is very eager to progress in terms of AI. So let's touch on the utopian and dystopian scenarios. I would be interested what you think about it, because when you listen to experts, there are always two different kinds of opinions. One kind is, okay, it's going to be great, and one opinion is more, it's going to be very, very bad. So, what is your opinion on these scenarios in the future? Are you more positive, more negative? What do you think? What is important to think about?
I cannot say it is better or the worse, bad, because future is futures, right?
Mm.
Always we can find some happiness there and unhappy things also,
Yeah.
right? So, and happy and unhappy, so that this is a kind of a relative the things, and but more important things is to develop, to to extend our abilities, right? In order to survive more and more, right? So if we develop more technologies, we're gonna have more chances to survive in this world, in this universe. Okay, so that is, the most important things for the humans. So I don't care about it's a dystopia or utopia. It's just a relative measures, relative things, right? If you can enjoy, well, if you can enjoy or not, that is up to you, right?
Yeah, and there we come again with personal perception. And
Mm,
so you then extend our capabilities. So one area is robots. Another area is to actually merge with technology in the sense, let's say that we implant neuro chips into our brain and extend our
mm,
memory and so on.
mm,
So at a certain point, we might want to keep up with robots, right? So once robots surpass
mm,
our capabilities,
mm,
maybe you think, okay, I want to keep up and I want to catch up. So
mhm,
you implement certain technologies into your body. So you
mm.
basically become a cyborg. What do you think about this perspective?
It's natural, of
Mm,
course, And well, as I said, the technology is a way of evolution for the humans. Of course, definitely, we want to accept the more technologies. If we want, we want to have an implant. We want to, well, look at what we are doing now. Everybody using their smartphones, right? Just keep using the smartphone. This is a kind of implanting technology, almost. Right?
yeah. So then I would be very interested into, do you have any personal techniques or routines that you do on a daily basis, maybe to come up with new ideas or to
You know, um, I always trying to think of many things, right?
Mhm.
So, it's a kind of internal voice. I guess you also have some internal voice in your brain, right? So always someone is just speaking in my brain, and then the most important moment is when I am, in the bathroom. When I'm taking a shower, just after taking a showers, I need to dry the hair, right? When I'm using hair dryers, always some ideas coming up. Right? So,
That's
uh,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so if I touch to my head, right? I think and I can have a kind of neutral the conditions in my brain, right? Then there are some ideas that are coming up, right? So
Interesting. Because I haven't used a hairdryer in a few years, so I will definitely start today after this conversation. Maybe
some,
that's a new technique.
it's quite important to have a kind of a neutral the condition of a brain. So it's maybe similar to the mentalization, I guess. But my case is it's easy, right? You just use a hair dryers, then I can mentalize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Um, one more question. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine you would be 18 years old in
Mm-hmm.
2018, right now, with the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and experience you have right now. What would
Mm-hmm.
you do? What would you do? What skills would you acquire?
I,
What would you do?
I see. Probably still I'm doing the same things because my current the motivation is to know about myself and the humans and the society. So this is a very fundamental and basic things. I will do just the same things, but I may have more challenges, right? And I may start the another companies or you know well if I'm young, I can take more challenges.
Okay. So which fields would you be interested into? I know that
Mm,
you are into philosophy, you are into art, you are into psychology. So
mm.
what other fields?
Probably, so what I want, I think I was a good programmer when I was young, right? So if I can become 18 years old right now, I'm going to back to the software world and develop the artificial intelligence by myself, I guess.
Mm. So a combination of technical skills, um, with philosophy and psychology and many different fields, because when we talk about humans, all these fields
But
merge, right?
yeah, but the most powerful approach is a constructive approach. Just create something, the conscious agent, right? And then, well, after that, we can talk about the, psychologies and philosophies, right? But without robot, without agent, we cannot have a discussions, right? So
Okay.
yeah, I call this approach the, constructive approach, So if I'm young, I can take the more challenges by myself, right? I'm working with many students right now. But somehow, if I can be a student again, I can do it more and more.
Okay. One more question that just popped up into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the series Westworld?
Mm-hmm.
Are you watching it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't like that idea. That's totally wrong. If the robot is so human-like, we cannot kill, right? If we can kill the human-like robot, that is a murder. Well, we are not so crazy. Okay, so we're so totally wrong.
Okay. Interesting. So, is there any series you would recommend?
About the Bicentennial Man. Bicentennial Man, that played by Robin Williams. I love that movie.
What is it again? What is the name again?
Bicentennial Man.
With Rob-
And the man who lived 2 centuries.
Yes, I know it. I watched it as it's pretty old, right? Not pretty
Yeah,
old,
very
but
old. Yeah, but I love that movie.
yeah, I watched it as a child. I remember. Yeah, I will watch it again. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for your time.
well,
That was so great. I learned so much.
I could enjoy the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Cool.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This episode of Global Brains the podcast has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more insights and the latest trends in the AI world. Always aiming to make AI accessible to everyone. Also, don't forget to rate and review so that we can continue to bring you the best content. If you work in the AI field or want to, join our community by following the link in the description. See you in the next episode.